Hi everyone out there. Right, it's been, I think, 2 to 3 years since I last did a movie review. Well, obviously the last movie review I really did was Michael Jackson's This Is It. But it's been 3 years since I've done a serious movie review, even though This Is It was classed as a movie. It's actually a concert documentary. But we won't go too much into that. And it's been 3 years, and what am I here to review? Highlander. Again. But this time it's not to talk about the anime or the pathetic cut that was released before the proper cut of Highlander the Source. Now, remember Highlander. This was a genius piece of filmmaking. I mean, the whole story, the whole premise of this movie was brilliant. And yet, why did they feel the need to make not one, not two, not three, but 4 sequels? I've had a lot of requests from people on Facebook, MySpace, YouTube, you name it, to review the other 3 sequels and the proper cut of the source. Here goes. Now, the first movie had a kick-ass soundtrack which featured this.
Here we are, born to be kings, we're the princes of the universe.
And then the second sequel, you do end up asking yourself, where did it go wrong? I mean, the first movie wrapped up things so well, and we even had a TV series that was fantastic. Its last series did start to go a bit strange, but aside from that, it was a fantastic series. I mean, like I said, it ran 6 years, and okay, only featured Connor MacLeod in the first episode, but that was to wrap up everything and get Duncan started on his journey, and that actually became a very big hit. The question you end up asking yourself is, where the hell did they go wrong with these sequels? Okay, for starters, Highlander 2, The Quickening. They decide to try and explain where immortals have come from. Now, what would be the logical thing? No real parents. No one knows their true origins, but someone has to try and explain it. How can we do that? Oh yeah, let's say they're aliens from another planet. Where have I seen this before? Granted, that movie was a lot of years later, but the whole aliens thing, you know, it seems to be the explanation for everything. It's like that old Simpsons joke. How do they do it? Aliens. But, no, seriously, okay, aside from that, what's the deal with this whole SHIELD business? I mean, I know there is a hole in the ozone layer that is going to take years to repair, but instead of covering it with some big blob that looks like someone's very cheap effects, yes, I know effects have moved on, and before I get comments saying that, I know that already, there's no need to clarify it before I continue. Now, Highlander 2, I will admit, I watched this before I saw the other Highlander movies. I know how that sounds. The way how I got into Highlander was actually watching the first episode of the TV series. And being a young kid, and remember, I have got Asperger's syndrome, it's a mild autism, we all know that, it's common knowledge. I originally thought that that was the first movie. So I don't ask me why. I was young at the time, like I said, and got away with watching a lot when I was younger. But anyway, I watched Highlander 2: The Quickening, and being young, I will admit, I actually thought it was okay. Yes, that's true. And then I grew up, as we all do, obviously. Watched it again, and my eyes were coming out my sockets. I mean, it's like, how can you make a movie so bad? I mean, I think it's fair to say Highlander 2 is worse than Batman and Robin and Home Alone 4 put to... In fact, no, Highlander the Source is worse than those two movies put together, and that does take some doing. I mean, it seemed to start out with a good concept. I mean, but yet again, it's like, how do we make a sequel out of something that we've wrapped up in one movie? Let's completely rape our own franchise, because this is Hollywood. But no, to its credit, Sean Connery stole the show in the whole movie. He is actually what makes it kind of watchable, even though some of the acting is cliche, and I won't go too much into it. Anyway, on to the next movie, which is Highlander 3, The Final Dimension as it's known in America, and The Sorcerer as it's known in the rest of the world. Okay, we've had the dire Highlander 2: The Quickening that never happened. Oh, and I just wanted to point out that I have not seen the Renegade version. I'm not sure if that is any better than The Quickening. Some people say it is, some people say it isn't. I have still yet to see it myself when they release it in the UK. Anyway, aside from that, Highlander 3, The Final Dimension, or The Sorcerer as I'm going to call it, seemed to start off okay. And yes, I do say okay. It did seem like a cheap remake of the first movie. It followed the same plot, didn't follow the same script, obviously, but it still seemed to follow all the same premises of the first movie. It even had obvious flashbacks to the first movie as well, which is obviously become to known use as stock footage. And I walked away from this movie, like I said, at first I saw it when I was younger, and I was actually blown away by how good I thought it was. Then again, I watched it again when I was a bit older, and yes, I liked it better than the second one. I mean, I thought nothing could be worse than the second Highlander movie, and they did a good job, more or less. The only thing that was lacking was the Queen hits, which obviously to me is going to be the best band of all time. And it was lacking good acting for a start. I mean, you had no Sean Connery in this one. It was all left up to Conor McLeod to carry the whole movie. And while Christophe Lambert is a good actor, or Christopher Lambert, whatever you want to call him, is a good actor. I mean, I have seen him in a fair few movies, except Fortress 2, which I will not go into. That he has actually done some good acting, but in this you do end up asking yourself, why am I talking in the same line of dialogue throughout the whole film? And that is the world's worst Christopher Lambert impression, and that's all you're going to get from me. And then it all ends the same. You end up with a big bloody battle at the end, and obviously Connor wins. I'm not even sure if it's the prize this time, because he gets raised up in the air like he did in the first movie. But are we really sure that that's it? Anyway, his son comes to fetch him, and they all live. It is a fairy tale ending. It's the whole, driving off with my new partner and my son's in the back, and hey, we're all having a big laugh. And then for some bizarre reason they decide to think, hang on a minute, we've wrapped up the movie again, we've wrapped up the whole series, even though this movie is 10 times worse than the first one. How can we obviously make another sequel from this?